Instagram. Getting ready to go on. I'm live. Good morning, everybody. It is Friday. That means it's coffee chat time. This is Billy Parrott, Billy and B Town, Meridian Real Estate. And honestly, I was going to skip coffee chat today because I've got a lot to do. I'm taking off to California tomorrow and I've got to pack, blah, blah, blah. But I thought, you know what? Consistency is key, am I right? And I've been dealing a lot with multifamily transactions here in the last couple of years with clients. So I thought, why not talk about some tricks, tips, some things you might want to know if you are thinking yourself about buying your first multifamily property. So I'm just going to give you a couple of things to think about if you are, oops, I got a time limit on my Instagram. I got to fix that. I think I'm back, hopefully. Hopefully I'm back. I got to fix that. I've got a time limit on my Instagram that it's supposed to cut off after like so many hours, and I keep forgetting to change that. And so when I go live, it completely cuts me off. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll just go ahead and start. So if you've got any questions as I'm going, just go ahead and put in the comment section anything. And if you've got any experience yourself, I'd love to hear it. But yeah, so one of the main things is location, obviously. Especially if you're planning on managing the property yourself, you definitely want something that's close enough that you can drive to, because once again, if you're not hiring a property manager to fix things, like if there's a leak or something happens with the property and the tenant needs you to come fix it, you're going to have to leave and go to the property and do it yourself. So making sure that that property is nearby, that's definitely key. The area's desirability, right? So if you're doing like a short-term rental or Airbnb type of situation, you want to make sure that it's close to certain amenities. That way that you're getting those people, renting your property on a regular basis, such as, maybe you're wanting to rent to traveling nurses. So you want to make sure that you're close to the medical corridor, or you're wanting to rent to college students. You want to make sure you're close to the colleges, so on and so forth. So those are things to think about. Also, rental demand. You want to check to see what the rental demand is also in that area. The other thing too is knowing the financing, what financing is available to you depending on how many units that you're wanting to purchase, things like that. Because they do have stricter lending criteria depending on how many units. So duplex versus a 5+, right? Anything 5 and over, you're looking at more of a commercial type of loan, which is a higher down payment, and it's a little bit of a different ball game. So we'll get into that a little bit further on in the conversation, but that's something to think about. Cash flow. So you definitely want to evaluate the potential income versus expenses to ensure the property can generate a positive cash flow. So when you are looking at properties, you're going to want to ask for what's called a rent roll. And that seller should have that information for you, and your realtor or whoever you're working with should ask for that. And so what that's going to show is going to show what they're getting for rent, what expenses they are paying. If they're paying for a property manager, if they're managing themselves. Again, what expenses are coming out every month, and if it is, what the vacancies are. Is it constantly rented? Those are all very important things to consider when you're looking at a property. So definitely ask for that. And then a market analysis. Have your realtor do a market analysis on the property to make sure that it is worth what they're asking for. And it's a simple thing that your agent can do for you. They could just pull up basically some comps in that area to make sure that it is worth what it's priced at. And they'll kind of give you an idea of what's happening in that area. Let's see. Oh, and another thing too you want to check on is what the rents are looking like too in that area. And what you can do is ask around, right? So you can call property management companies. If you have a property management friend, I have a couple that I just call up and say, hey, what do rents look like on something like this? And they're happy to help you with that. So just calling a property management company and saying, hey, if I buy this property, so say maybe you're buying a brand new duplex, right? That hasn't had any rent history yet. And you need to find that out. What would this look like? How much rent do you think I could get? They're usually really good about giving you that information. You just kind of give them the area, the square footage, how many bedrooms, things like that. That way, at least you're not just pulling it out of the Yahoo. You have some sort of idea of what you could rent that for. Let's see, legal and zoning. You definitely want to make sure that you can rent the property because, so, okay, for instance, the townhouse that I live in currently, you used to be able to rent. But before I purchased it, they changed it. The HOA changed it. So you can no longer rent these townhomes. So things like that, right? Just because you could rent them before doesn't mean you still can. So just checking that information, and you can find that out by looking at the bylaws, covenants, restrictions, things like that. So really just diving deep into that information. And you'll get that once you kind of start, gearing towards that. And the realtor should be able to provide that info for you as well. So just asking those questions just to make sure, because the worst thing you can do is buy the property and then you find out, oh, no, you can't rent it. And then what are you going to do? That would be the worst thing ever. So just making sure that you are asking the right questions. Because yes, once again, it can change. Property condition, definitely get a home inspection. And I would highly recommend, just depending on what area you are in. So here in Billings, we do have pockets in the area that have high levels of radon. So, for instance, I just had a listing that it came back that we had high radon levels. So the reason why I tell my buyers to get a radon test is if it does come in high, which is higher, anything higher than 4, if it comes in high, we want the seller to remedy that. And here's why. So if the seller remedies it, it's on them, right? And it's usually about $1,500 to install a mitigation system. So if you don't have, so say you don't get the test and you buy the property 5 years later, you go to sell it, the buyer gets a radon test, it comes in high, well, you have to flip the bill, right? And you have to pay for the mitigation system. So it's just kind of a peace of mind. Just get it done now. It's usually about $75 to get that radon test done, and then at least then right? So definitely highly recommend getting that handled. Let's see what else. Oh, yeah, and just checking to make sure the plumbing, the electrical, all of that is working properly. Management. Here's a big one. Just, do you want to manage it? Do you have the time to manage it? Do you want to take those phone calls at midnight when crap is hitting the fan? I mean, literally crap could happen, right? Like, for instance, a situation happened where a kid flushed a toy down the toilet and it stopped up the sewer while stuff was coming out of the plumbing and continued to do so. Well, yeah, you get what I'm saying. So do you want to have to handle that kind of situation? If you have a property manager, they're the ones that are going to get that phone call. And typically it's not very much to pay for a property manager per month. So that's something that you have to decide. Is it worth it to pay that amount? It's usually about 10-15% of whatever you're renting the property for. So definitely consider that. There are some really good property managers out there, but do your homework. because there are some bad ones too that don't answer their phone and don't do what they're supposed to do and don't communicate. So ask around, get referrals, and I do have a couple in mind for you if you need one. Let's see, tenant relations. You got to understand the landlord tenant laws. Okay. So you got to know what you can and can't do. All right. So just know that going in, because you want to make sure that you have a positive relationship with your tenants, because you want them to take care of your property. You don't want them to destroy it and then you have to pay money to fix it after the fact, after they leave. Exit strategy. What is your future plans for the property? Are you going to hold it long term? Are you going to hand it over to relatives after you pass? Are you going to plan on selling it? Are you going to renovate it and flip it? Like what are your plans? You have to know that going in, right? So just deciding on what your purpose is for buying this investment property, because sometimes a lot of investors, I can't even talk today. A lot of investors don't hold it. They just buy it, flip it, and then sell it right away. But some investors, I work with a few of these too. They just hold them and they have them for years. And then eventually they go and sell them and then take that money and buy another property. So just knowing what you want to do with the property going in. And then tax implications. Talk to your CPA, knowing what your tax implications are going to be. Do you want to do a 1031 exchange on it? Is it going to make sense to do that? Sometimes it doesn't make sense to do a 1031 exchange. So knowing that beforehand is smart. You got to be strategic about it. Knowing what you can why can't I talk today? I think I had too much caffeine this morning. You got to know what expenses that you can deduct. Okay. So yeah, so definitely, and depreciation. So definitely talk to your CPA and know all of that. Oh my God, I cannot talk today. Whew. All right. I just got to slow down. All right, so what do we want to talk about next? Oh, let's talk about down payment. So how much down payment do you need? So I'm ready to buy. You've talked me into it, Billy. I'm going to buy a multifamily. How much money do I need? Good question. So it depends. It depends on how many units you're going to buy. So if you're going to buy a 1 to 4 unit, now this is just a broad statement, okay? So definitely talk to your lender, because there are different loan programs out there that you could qualify for, and you could possibly get lower than this, but it also could be higher than this. Okay. So just this disclaimer there. So if you plan, let's just say if you plan to live, so okay, let me backtrack. Let's just say you want to buy a duplex and you want to live in one of the units and rent out the other one, which I think is a very smart way to start your first investment and buy your first home. I think is brilliant. You could qualify for a lower down payment option through a FHA program, okay, which is about 3.5% down. I think that is probably the smartest way to go about it if you can do it that way. And also you could do a VA loan too that way, and it could potentially be 0% for a VA loan. So look into that if you're VA. If you're doing a non-owner occupied, so that means you don't live in the property, it could be around 20-25%. But again, there are some programs that could be a little less, depending on the property size and the lender. Commercial, so anything 5+ units, you'd be looking at about 25 to 30%. But again, I have seen some programs as low as 10% and even lower. So again, talk to your lender and see what programs they offer on those properties. So definitely save up. So I've been asked this question as well. What is the best cap rate? What is the best cap rate? What is that number? So, so the best capitalization rate for optimal cash flow in real estate investments depends on various factors, including the property's location, type, and investor's risk tolerance. Cap rates are used to estimate the investor's potential return on an investment property. So it's a cap rate is subjective. Okay. A higher cap rate, which is 8% and higher, typically indicates a potentially higher risk because these properties are often in a less desirable area and might require more management and upkeep. They do get more cash flow, which gives it the higher cap rate. But just know that going in, it could be a higher risk for you. Higher risk, but possibly money. Lower cap rates, which are 4% to 7%, which are still good. They're more stable and they're in more desirable areas with lower risk. They may offer less immediate cash flow, but over time, again, more stable and will appreciate in value over time. Hey, Raymond. Raymond's watching this morning. Hey, friend. Long time no see. So yeah, so that kind of explains a little bit cap rates because I know sometimes people put a little bit too much emphasis on I have to have more than 8. I have to have more than 8, but it doesn't always matter. Sometimes slow and steady wins the race. So keep that in mind. So how do I calculate a cap rate? That's a lot in one. I can't talk today. So a cap rate, you basically take the net operating income. So what that is, it's the annual income generated by the property after deducting all the operating expenses. So that includes the property management fees if you hire a property manager, maintenance, insurance, property taxes, but it does not include mortgage payments. Okay. It also includes insurance too. And then the property, so then you take the property purchase price. So that's the total cost to buy the property. And that includes closing fees, all of that. Okay. So to calculate the cap rate, you take the NOI, which is the net operating income. I'm sorry if I'm kind of blabbing at you. You take the net operating income and you subtract the property's annual operating expenses from its annual rent income. Okay, are we writing this down? I know it's a little confusing. It's confusing for me too. And then you divide the NOI, the net operating income, by the property's purchase price or the current market value if you're evaluating the existing investment. And then you multiply that result by 100 to convert it to the percentage. And that's your cap rate. Boom. There you go. I'm not very mathy, so there you go. So for instance, here's an example. Okay, I kind of penciled this out earlier. So if a property generates $120,000 in annual rental income and has $20,000 in annual operating expenses, the NOI would be $100,000. So 120,000 minus 20,000. If the purchase price of the property is 1 million, the cap rate would be 10%. Does that make sense? Hopefully it makes sense. So there you go. I think that I covered all of that. Hopefully, maybe. Hopefully I didn't make your head spin. But yeah, if you ever have questions on multifamily investments, just give me a holler. I've done quite a bit of them in my 14 years of real estate, and it's probably one of my favorite real estate transactions to help with. There's definitely some interesting properties out there as well. I've seen. So yeah. And I think that's all I've got. I do want to let you know, and unfortunately, I will not be there because I'll be in California, but the Family Promise Beach Blizzard fundraiser is happening this Saturday, February 17th. And oh my God, I'm so bummed I'm going to miss it. It's going to be a Jimmy Buffett theme. They're going to have cheeseburgers in paradise. Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a fun time. So if you can go, I'd highly recommend. It's a good time. It helps a great organization. They help families get back on their feet. Again, you guys know how near and dear that is to my heart. So if you can go, please do. If you want more information, go to their website. I think it's familypromiseyv.org. Go there, buy a ticket, and bid on something. Please go. And they want you to like dress in like, Jimmy Buffett, beachy theme. Get a cheeseburger. They're gonna have like a fun margarita bicycle where like you ride a bike and it blends a margarita, like the bicycle blends a margarita for you. So it's gonna be fun. I'm bummed that I'm gonna miss it this year. Last year I emceed it and it was a blast. So yeah. So anyway, hopefully you can go, and I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I hope that this helped you out, and we'll see you next week, I think. Let's see, what is next Friday? I'll be in Utah next Friday, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Have a great weekend. See you later. Bye, Facebook. Thanks for watching.